So here we are. It's March 2026, and just 3 days ago, on March 18th, actually this really fascinating legal document dropped in the Northern District of California.
Yeah, it's definitely not something you see every day on the docket.
Not at all. And today's deep dive is based entirely on that one single source. It's an 8-page court document, specifically a Pro Se motion for reconsideration pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 5090.
Right, and for anyone who, hasn't spent time in a law library, pro se just means the plaintiff is representing herself.
Exactly.
She doesn't have this massive corporate legal team drafting the motion. She researched it, wrote it, and filed it completely on her own.
Which makes it even more impressive to read. So the plaintiff is a woman named LaJuana A. Reid, and she's suing the city of Oakland. The case number is 25 CV7 00383 JST.
Yep, that's the one.
But before we jump into the weeds here, we really need to be incredibly clear with you, our listener, about what our objective is today. We are looking exclusively at the allegations and the arguments that are constructed in this specific legal filing.
Right, we are absolutely not taking sides here.
No.
We're not endorsing these viewpoints as, the absolute objective truth of what happened on the ground. And we're certainly not rendering any kind of legal verdict.
Exactly. We are simply unpacking the arguments, the claims, and the timeline exactly as the plaintiff presented them in her motion.
Because it's a fascinating structural argument.
It really is. The mission for you today is to explore the anatomy of what the plaintiff calls a closed-loop deprivation of liberty. Because regardless of how the judge ultimately rules on this, the document itself is just an absolute masterclass in how bureaucratic records are generated, controlled, and, well, fought over.
It really forces us to look at the architecture of truth in municipal systems.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where does the plaintiff say this whole timeline actually begins?
So to understand the legal battle happening right now in 2026, we actually have to trace the roots all the way back to 2019.
Wow, okay, 7 years ago.
Yeah, specifically to a tiny window just 15 days after LaJuana Reid moved into her home in Oakland.
15 days? I mean, you're barely unpacking boxes at that point.
Right, you're just figuring out your commute. But the filing states the underlying conflict started right then over a neighbor named Moses Jocko Jr.
Okay.
According to the document, LaJuana reported this neighbor for operating an illegal cannabis cultivation setup, basically a grow tent.
Got it.
But she was missing one crucial piece of invisible context. The filing reveals that the neighbor, Moses Jocko Jr., was actually the first cousin of an Oakland Police Department officer.
Boy.
Yeah, Officer John Jocko Romero.
And the filing notes Officer Romero wasn't just, like, a random patrol officer.
No, not at all. The motion states that Officer Romero was actually the sole officer assigned to the Oakland Police Department's cannabis unit.
Hold on. Let's look at the mechanics of that.
Huh.
The filing is claiming that the one guy in charge of policing cannabis in the entire city is the cousin of the guy running the alleged illegal grow tent next door.
That is exactly the structural conflict presented in the motion.
That's wild. Imagine complaining to the city about a noisy, illegal nightclub on your street, only to find out the city's sole noise complaint inspector secretly co-owns the club, and suddenly you're the one being investigated.
That's a great way to put it. And the filing emphasizes that at this specific point in 2019, LaJuana Reid had never even met Officer Romero.
They were total strangers.
Complete strangers. She didn't know he existed. Yet the document alleges that Officer Romero began authoring internal police documents labeling LaJuana as a threat to society.
For anyone listening, this is the terrifying part. You don't get a push notification on your phone when a government database updates your status.
Right, you have no idea.
One unchecked box by one officer just changes your invisible digital footprint overnight. But what does that label actually do mechanically? Like, is it just name-calling in a file, or does it trigger something?
Oh, it's a calculated tactical shift. In law enforcement systems, labeling a citizen a threat to society fundamentally changes the rules of engagement. By documenting her as a threat, it triggered specific operational protocols. It guaranteed that any future police response to LaJuana wouldn't be treated as, a standard neighbor dispute.
Okay.
It would be treated as an active mental health crisis.
Which completely bypasses standard investigative procedures.
Exactly.
If officers arrive on the scene believing they're walking into a severe mental health crisis with a documented threat to society, they aren't there to take a nuisance complaint about a neighbor's plants.
No, they're not.
They're there to neutralize a perceived volatile situation. The label dictates the reality.
It creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, really. The officers arrive expecting erratic behavior, which then totally colors their interpretation of the citizens' reactions.
Right.
And that mechanism leads directly to the plaintiff's arrest on October 1st, 2019.
So she's arrested. But if an officer creates a false narrative in 2019 to protect an illegal grow tent, as the plaintiff alleges, how does that stay hidden from the victim for years?
Well, that's the big question.
Because if you're arrested, you eventually get to see the evidence used against you. I mean, the justice system is built on discovery.
And that is where the motion outlines this brilliant, if totally chilling, concept of the closed loop.
Okay, break that down for us.
The plaintiff breaks the cover-up down into two distinct phases. Phase I is the creation of the legal predicate. This happened in 2019.
So this is the paperwork foundation.
Exactly. According to the filing, Officer Romero authored the Citizens Crime Report, that's CCR number 19048359.
Okay.
It claims he also prepared the ex parte temporary restraining order and, crucially, authored the reporting party card, or RP card.
Which is what actually ordered LaJuana's arrest.
Yes.
Wait, ex parte, for anyone who hasn't been to law school, that means it was granted with only one side of the story, right?
That's the exact definition.
So LaJuana wasn't even in the room to defend herself before this foundation was laid in front of a judge.
Right. One party presents their case without the other party present, usually in an emergency context. So this entire narrative was codified without her knowledge.
Wow.
But what's fascinating here is Phase 2. Phase 2 is the control of the record, and this stands from 2020 all the way to 2025.
A 5-year span.
Yeah. So after the arrest, LaJuana naturally wants to know why she was targeted. She starts filing Public Records Act requests and FOIA requests.
As you would. I mean, you demand every piece of paper with your name on it.
Of course. But during this massive multi-year period, the city acknowledged that Officer Romero was assigned to the records unit.
Right.
The filing alleges he was actively participating in processing and making what the city called standard redactions on responsive materials.
That's kidding.
He was literally handling the very records requests LaJuana was submitting about her own arrest.
Wait, logistically, how does a police department allow the target of a citizen's complaint to be the one holding the black Sharpie over the evidence? Doesn't the sheer overlap inherently delay discovery of the facts?
It acts like an absolute firewall against discovery.
I mean, in 2026, every keystroke in the municipal database is tracked. Are you telling me the system doesn't have an automated conflict of interest flag?
Apparently not in this instance, according to the motion. Think of it practically. It's like a student being put in charge of grading their own final exam and then being allowed to permanently shred the answer key.
That's insane.
The motion argues that these standard redactions resulted in the continued withholding of information that would have revealed Romero's identity, his authorship of the reports, and his connection to Moses Jacko Jr.
He is allegedly redacting his own involvement. It's like a perfectly sealed loop.
Exactly. In legal mechanics, this creates temporal obstruction. The overlap in his roles effectively stalled time.
Because she can't fight what she can't see.
Right. The closed loop ensured that critical identifying information and evidence of coordination were continually withheld from her for years, just burning down the clock on her ability to seek justice.
Which perfectly transitions us to the current legal fight. So she's trapped in this loop where the system is hiding the evidence of its own cover-up. If that's the case, how could a federal judge look at this last month on February 23, 2026, and just dismiss her case?
Well, the judge dismissed the case based on the statute of limitations.
Okay, the timer.
Right. The legal system only gives you a specific window of time to file a lawsuit after an injury or civil rights violation occurs. The court reasoned that since LaJuana was arrested on October 1st, 2019, she should have known the facts of her claim back then.
I see.
The judge also noted she had been given multiple opportunities to amend her complaint early on and failed to provide these specific facts.
So the court stance is essentially, you were the one arrested in 2019. You were physically there. You should have filed all of this years ago.
Basically. The court operated on the assumption that the clock started ticking the moment the handcuffs went on.
But her entire counterargument is that she didn't know who put the target on her back, or that there even was a target, because the architect of the arrest was controlling the records. And that brings us to the core of this March 18th filing. She is filing this motion under Rule 59E to prove the judge made a manifest error. How does she dismantle the judge's reasoning?
Well, first, she attacks that multiple opportunities argument.
Okay.
She points out that her early amendments to the complaint were actually just administrative and technical
Like
corrections.
formatting stuff?
Yeah, things required by the court before any defendant was even formally served with the lawsuit. Second, she argues the defense used a procedural sleight of hand.
What did they do?
They strategically moved to dismiss her older first amended complaint, while her second amended complaint was already active and operative. She claims this maneuver totally misled the court about her diligence.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. When we talk about her diligence, we aren't talking about a citizen who sent 2 emails to a generic inbox and just gave up.
Not at all.
The document states that to break this closed loop, LaJuana filed approximately 375 separate Public Records Act and FOIA requests.
Yeah, let the physical reality of that number sink in. 375 requests.
I mean, most people give up after one FOIA request. You submit it. You wait weeks. You get an email saying they need a 14-day extension.
Oh, always.
You wait again. Finally, you get a PDF that looks like a black Sharpie exploded all over it. You have to draft an appeal. It takes months.
It's exhausting.
She did that cycle 375 times. That is an unbelievable multi-year forensic endurance test.
And she uses that monumental effort to prove to the judge that she was trying everything humanly possible to discover the facts. If we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a fundamental legal mechanism at play here called equitable tolling.
Okay.
Specifically tied to the doctrine of fraudulent concealment.
Break the mechanics of that down for us.
Sure. Think of the statute of limitations as a strict timer.
Right.
Usually it starts when the event happens, but equitable tolling hits the pause button on that timer.
Oh, I see.
The law dictates that a defendant cannot invoke the statute of limitations. They can't point to the clock and say, you're out of time, if their own deceptive conduct is what prevented the plaintiff from discovering the facts in the first place.
That makes perfect logical sense. You can't actively rig the clock, hide the evidence, and then penalize me for missing the deadline.
Exactly. Her argument is that the accrual of her claim couldn't possibly have begun in 2019. How could she plead specific facts about Officer Romero's individual coordinated conduct back then when she had no idea he even existed until delayed disclosures finally slipped through the cracks between 2023 and 2025?
She couldn't have.
Right. She argues the facts weren't reasonably discoverable because they were actively concealed by the structure of the records department itself.
So she pushes through 375 requests. She finally starts piercing this veil around 2023, 2025. But reading through this 2026 motion, what is astounding is what she is still fighting to uncover today.
Yeah, it's not over.
Because the document shifts from what was historically redacted to what is actively being hidden right now.
The motion outlines several glaring, ongoing mysteries, and one of the most significant breakthroughs happened on January 16, 2023.
What happened then?
Well, critically, she didn't get this information from the police records department. She found it through records obtained by the public defender.
That is a massive detail. Why would a public defender have access to something that 375 FOIA requests couldn't dislodge?
It exposes the concept of information silos in municipal government.
Oh, interesting.
Public defenders have different database access, different evidentiary rights, and they operate on completely different systems than the public-facing FOIA officers.
Right. They're preparing for criminal defense.
Exactly. So through that alternative channel, she discovered she had been assigned a watch list subject number.
Unbelievable.
Specifically, watch list subject no 959-669-000, along with associated classification codes.
A secret watch list number that had never once been disclosed in response to her hundreds of prior records requests to the police department.
Not once. And when she finally took this specific watch list number back to the Oakland Police Department and explicitly asked them to confirm the underlying records, their response was a classic bureaucratic maneuver.
What did they say?
They refused to confirm or deny that the records even existed.
Wow.
Or, in some instances, they claimed the referenced crime report simply didn't exist at all.
Which is an absurd contradiction. You cannot legally claim a report doesn't exist when your own department literally used those same records to justify arresting her in the first place.
It's what is known in government transparency circles as a GLOMAR response.
So GLOMAR response.
Yeah, the term originates from the Cold War, when the CIA refused to confirm or deny the existence of a salvage ship called the Glomar Explorer.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It's basically a legal mechanism for an agency to block a records request without admitting they actually hold the records.
Got it.
But LaJuana's motion points out the massive legal hypocrisy here. Defendants cannot simultaneously rely on the existence of records to justify an arrest while deploying a GLOMAR response to refuse those same records when the citizen seeks access to them.
You can't have your cake and eat it too when it comes to someone's civil liberties.
Exactly.
And it's not just paper records or watch list databases that are missing here. The filings specifically highlights missing physical visual evidence.
Yes, the missing body camera footage from a responding officer named Denardi.
Right.
According to the plaintiff, this footage is the absolute linchpin. It allegedly shows LaJuana exiting her home and actively, calmly attempting to speak with the responding police officers.
Visual evidence is objective. If she is on tape calmly trying to speak with officers, it completely dismantles the fabricated narrative that she was a volatile threat to society, experiencing a severe mental health crisis.
It is the ultimate reality check against the written police report. Yet, according to the filing, the Oakland Police Department has completely withheld this footage. They aren't just dragging their feet. They are forcing LaJuana to go through the massive legal hurdle of obtaining a formal court order just to get them to release the video of her own interaction with the police.
This raises an important question, though. How can any citizen, no matter how diligent or legally savvy, seek justice when the evidentiary goalposts are constantly being moved or redacted or outright erased by the system itself?
And that is the central tension of her entire Rule 59E motion. She is laying this out for the judge, basically saying, you dismissed my case because you ruled I should have brought these facts to you sooner. But look at the architectural lengths the system went to in order to keep these facts out of my hands.
Right. I couldn't bring them to you sooner because the defendant was guarding the vault and they changed the locks.
Exactly. She's not just arguing case law here. She's mapping out the forensic blueprint of a cover-up. She's showing the court the exact mechanism of how her information was weaponized and then hidden. And that blueprint, phase I creation to establish the predicate, phase 2 control to block the discovery, is what makes this document so uniquely compelling.
It really is.
It meticulously details how a localized, mundane grievance over a neighbor's plants supposedly escalated into a coordinated manipulation of municipal databases.
So what does this all mean? Why does a single pro se lawsuit filed by one woman in Oakland, California matter to you listening to this right now?
It's a fair question.
It matters because it perfectly illustrates the vulnerability of the public in the face of absolute information asymmetry.
Information asymmetry occurs when one party in a transaction or a conflict has vastly more information than the other.
And in the justice system, the state almost always holds the cards.
Always. They have the databases, the radios, the records units.
But this case shows us exactly the terrifying physical and emotional toll it takes to balance those scales. I mean, it takes 375 separate requests.
Yeah.
It takes years of forensic record parsing. It takes catching a lucky break through a public defender's database just to find out you're on a secret watch list.
It's staggering.
It shows the sheer, exhausting human effort required to pierce a bureaucratic veil when a system decides to close ranks and protect its own.
It really highlights a vulnerability in the administrative state. The operational tools designed to ensure public safety, like threat assessments and crisis protocols, can theoretically be weaponized to silence a complaint.
Right.
And the democratic tools designed for public transparency, like FOIA and the Public Records Act, can theoretically be managed and neutralized by the very individuals they are meant to expose.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on today. We started by talking about the paper trail. But today, those trails aren't paper. We rely entirely on digital systems to create a permanent, objective record of truth.
Yeah, that's true.
Police reports, court filings, threat assessments, watch list numbers, they're all just entries in a digital database. And databases require administrators. If a digital system allows the architect of a false narrative to also hold the administrative keys to its redaction, if the system operates as a perfectly sealed echo chamber, are we moving toward a future where truth isn't determined by what actually happened in the real world? Is truth simply going to be determined by whoever has the highest administrative clearance in the database?